Hi, everybody. This is Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof. And today I am here with Hajah. And please tell me how to pronounce your last name, which I intended to ask you beforehand.
It's Kandeh.
Kandeh. Okay, Hajah Kandeh. And I'm going to read her bio so I can properly introduce her. And then we're going to just jump right in. Okay. At 23, Hajah Kandeh fled the conflict diamond war in her country of birth, Sierra Leone, where she had suffered tremendous violence. With a background in international relations and an avid interest in law, Hajah has worked as a mental health counselor and consultant, amongst others. Retail, customer service, nannying, jobs most immigrants do to get started in America. Hajah loves poetry and is fluent in several languages, including French, Russian, and Creole. That's K-R-I-O. Hajah is the author of Stretched, a memoir of survival that is soon to be published. She is the founder of Do Tell, an organization which aims to educate and empower children to speak up in a safe space about sexual abuse and other forms of violation, so they can get the help they need to begin the long journey of healing necessary to help them become healthy, whole adults capable of living fulfilling and productive lives. So welcome, Hajah. How are you?
Thank you so very much, Michelle. I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too. And I have to tell everybody, Hajah and I got connected through a mutual business associate, and we emailed a few times and you know, just talked via email a few times. And then we had our first Zoom, well, maybe a couple of weeks ago. And It was like we had known each other all our lives. It was just that way from the beginning. Like, oh my gosh.
Where have you been all this time?
Yeah.
I know this person. How come I'm just meeting them, but I know them? It was like that.
Yes, that's how it was. So there was an instant connection. And so I want to ask you, Hajah, tell viewers a little bit about your background in Sierra Leone, just so they can get a picture of what you've come from. And then we'll, forward to today.
Most people have never even heard of Sierra Leone, and it came on the map when the Blood Diamond Wars, the conflict diamond wars became popular in the news. So I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and I grew up in a culture where, for the most part, children are seen and not heard, and that set events in motion that would follow me or haunt me for most of my adult life. And so when the war came, and there was very little that I could do to continue being as fulfilled as I would have wanted for myself. I had the fortune of being brought to America, and so my journey towards healing some of the traumas that I'd experienced in childhood began once I got to America, but it took a long time.
Yeah, and okay, so you were 23 when you got to America, when you arrived. So what was the first thing you did? Just stepping foot on American soil from Sierra Leone. What were your first few days like?
I think the first thing I did was thank God that I was away from from all that horror and pain and just complete terror that it's hard to put into words. And then, of course, there was this whole new world to explore. I had never been in the snow before, and the year I came, Philadelphia was having the highest amount of snow they'd had in 30 years. So I was just like a child in Wonderland, so to speak, those first few days. I mean, of course, there were emotions that were not as pleasant because I had left home and I'd left my brothers there. But then there was also this possibility. There was this sense of, there's a chance for a new beginning and for good things to happen now. So that's how my first few days were.
Okay, yeah, that has to be really, exciting and traumatizing at the same time. And so you we're in America now. Now you're fleeing the violence in Africa, and then you say you confronted new kinds of violence in America, and you discovered tribalism in America also. Can you kind of describe what that meant to you, that you noticed that? I don't think you know, an American that was born here would understand that or realize that even. So kind of describe that, because you're very right.
Yes, what's funny, when you're in Africa, for most Africans, America is the land of milk and honey, so to speak. It's we all have this. America has done an amazing job of selling herself to the world as the utopia, the place to be. And so you're not expecting anything bad. You're not expecting to see homeless people on the street. You're not expecting to find some of the things that I experienced, which one of which you just mentioned. Tribes. Everybody knows there are many tribes in Africa. We live with this. This is how our culture is. And so to come to America with this ideal in mind that America is, perfect, it's very different from Africa. And to realize, wait a minute, okay, Black people here are separate from white people. Chinese have their own culture, gays and lesbians. And it was this separation and this realization that here too, groups and tribes were very much as real as they are in Africa, which was a big shock for me. And trying to navigate that as a Black person, as an African who had never considered my skin color as something to think of. That was a learning experience for me, and I don't think I've quite learned all of what it means to be a Black African in America.
Yes, because Black African is different than African American, and there's a distinction right there that kind of differentiates a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Of course, and again, that was another big shock for me, because in Africa, you're taught that at least I was as a child, that every Black person is your brother and sister. And so when I came here and I would hear these comments like, oh, you're different, you're not from here. And I am thinking, well, what does that mean, really? Because when somebody looks at me, except for my accent, when I start talking, I look like every other Black person. But America made that distinction for me, which was new for me, that you are Black, but you're different from the Blacks here.
Yeah, that is an astute observation, because there is definitely a difference, but and like you said, tribalism, there's definitely like, oh, you have an accent, you're not from around here, are you?
Yes. Yes. So
yeah.
So even amongst Blacks, there is tribalism in America. So yeah. so that theme of tribalism has woven its way through all these different groups, which was not something that growing up in Africa had prepared me for.
Yes, yes. And you experienced some challenges too when you were first here. And you said the blue recycle bins were sometimes a matter of survival for you?
Yes. Like I said, you have this idea from childhood that once you get to America, the American dream is available and possible if you work hard and if you try hard, and if possibilities are endless, which is true in theory, but in reality, as you know, some of the poorest people in the world are from here. There are more children hungry here than maybe even in some parts of Africa. So this idea that is sold to the world that there's so much opportunity and there are programs for the less fortunate and immigrants to get started and to have a life. It's not as simple as it's portrayed. And even as educated as I was and hardworking as I am, there were days when, just because, again, I discovered that being Black here limits your opportunities, limits your access to certain things for basic living, that was something that I had to live through. And sometimes it got so difficult that I was conjuring up different ways of how to do this job and do that job. And most immigrants, if you wouldn't know, have 4 or 5 jobs in order to survive. And so I came up with this idea that maybe if my 2 part-time jobs were not working, perhaps I could start a recycling business, when at that time recycling had just been introduced to the general public. So that's how I got to picking plastic bottles and sending them, which would have made some of my my friends and my father roll in his grave to find me picking up bottles in America to survive. Yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that, you know, they're coming from Huntington Beach, California. There were people doing that same thing there, you know, rummaging through trash cans, and you'd see people with big plastic trash bags hauling a bunch of, you know, metal cans and bottles, and they were doing the same thing. So yeah, yeah. And then I want to, like, you know, kind of skip a beat a little bit. You discovered Jimmy Choo's shoes at Saks, and then you made a realization that the cost, you know, tell a little bit about that.
Well, when I came here, again, like I said, you listed all the jobs that I did, including now picking plastic bottles from the recycle bin to make some money, again, to send back home, if not even for me. There's always a need for the immigrant to make extra money, because we have families back home who don't know the reality of America, who are still having the same ideas and illusions that we had back then. So they're thinking, oh, you know, you're in America now, you can send money, you can send money. And so, so there's no way for you to explain to them on, you know, that it's not what it looks like. You have to come here and actually live it for you to understand the realities of life in America. So at any rate, my first job here I got was as a greeter at Saks, Saks Fifth Avenue. And it was such a thrilling experience for me to be ushered in this world of opulence and luxuries that I mean, like I said, the price of a pair of Jimmy Choo's, I'm thinking that could feed a family of 4 back home for a whole year or even more. And it just was this whole other reality that I couldn't wrap my mind around, that a pair of shoes could cost so much. But that's how I got to experience that side of America as well. So I had the fortune of rubbing shoulders with some of these very wealthy people, and then also the reality of being an immigrant in America, picking up bottles to sell to earn a few extra dollars. So that has been part of this journey of experiencing in America in a very multifaceted way, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point did you become a believer? Because I know you are a believing, you know, believing God, and you're a strong believer. That was one of our first ties when we first, you know, met on email and LinkedIn, or and email. So
yes.
Kind of describe your journey that way.
Well, I had always been a very ambitious child. I wanted to excel in school, and that again was born out of my feelings of insecurity. When I was a child, when I was 11, I was initiated into a coming of rite passage that most young girls go through in Africa, which is FGM, female genital mutilation. I'm sure you've heard of it. Have you heard of it?
Oh, me, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yes. And so knowing at a very early age that something had been taken from me that made me different from other people, especially other women, got me into this space where I thought, I have to become more, I have to try harder, I have to make up for what has been taken. I have to make up for what has been lost. And part of that thinking in my child mind was, God is Papa God. He's a father. He can do anything. Maybe he can't give me back that, but he can give me other things. that would make up for what I have lost. And so I prayed. I said a simple prayer that I wanted God to make me the apple of his eye, that I wanted him to make me special. And in my own child way, I had that experience with God in a very simple way. And then, of course, as I grew up, went to school and went to college, I joined the Bible study, student union, and then got closer in more practical and intellectual ways of understanding what Christianity meant and what it meant to know Christ, to become a believer. That happened in college. But I've always had this pull to God, born out of my need to be helped, to be protected, and to be guided through some of the challenges I had as a child.
Okay, yeah, that is awesome. And I want to ask you too, with the, I don't want to focus on the genital mutilation, but did you have to grieve, like you said, you compensated for it? Did you have to grieve a loss, almost like any loss we experience in life? We have to go through the 5 stages of grief, and they're not all tidy and wrapped up in a, okay, I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. Did you find yourself having to go through that, or did you just immediately compensate with education and with achieving?
Absolutely. For 2 things. This is such an accepted part of the African culture that you don't think there's anything wrong. Because I'm ambitious and because I read a lot as a child, and part of that got me to understand that maybe this is not normal in other parts of the world. But as far as my immediate culture, this is normal. So you don't think that something bad has happened. So there was no grieving process. I just delved right into, okay, how do I make this better for me? So my grieving or going through the realization even that I'd suffered a trauma only happened in America when I would touch on other things that had happened along the way too, which were other traumatic events. So there was this eruption of grief that was interconnected, but was not necessarily only tied to the FGM.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense, and you really did. Can you tell people, to backtrack just a little bit, can you tell people about your education, because you rocked it when it has come to just excelling in education. So I did not read that part of your bio, but tell us a little bit about how you progressed.
I don't know that I rocked it. I don't know. You're being very kind. But I was a very curious child. And one of the things that happens, and I've found out about from other survivors as well, or people who have felt less than, you find something that you're good at. You want to find something that gives you a little bit of an edge. And so for me, language had always come easy to me. And I just became the great debater. I wanted to be in plays. I wanted to, anything that would get me outside. Perhaps I was running away from my pain. So learning was a great outlet for me. That's how I got into studying French, and I won a scholarship when I was in my teens to go to France as for best French learner in high school. And that again showed me that, wow, if you study, if you learn, there are things that our education can afford you. There are places you can go with your learning that somebody cannot take away from you. And then, of course, my interest in law came from that, knowing as a young person that perhaps this thing that happened to me, or these things that have happened to me, which also included child abuse in different ways, physical abuse and sexual abuse. And I felt that if I put myself in the position to study, I might be able to someday be part of that group of people that lay down the law, that you can't do this to children, you can't do this to women, you can't do this to the defenseless. So my quest for learning and getting knowledge were sparked by my need to help and change life for other people, for others.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And did you found an organization that helps that group of people, helps young women who have been, sexually abused and all that?
I did, and that is the most I think that is my life's work. I think that is that is my why.
Yeah.
That is the reason why I'm speaking with you today. That is the reason I wrote my memoir, Stretched, which is about, my surviving my life, and then of course the grace of God and the beauty and majesty of God's ability to take you literally from the grave and give you life again, and give you hope, and give you dreams, and give you beauty, and and clothe you in honor instead of the shame that I had been dressed in all of my life, that had limited me so much. Even though on the outside I was this accomplished, I seemed to be this accomplished, happy young woman, just living her life. But it wasn't true. It was a facade. Underneath, I was a broken child who needed to heal from all these things that had happened as a child, and even as an adult. And so Do Tell was a cry for me, that was answered in a way I never got a chance to speak to any adult or anyone that I felt safe enough with to say, I was hit again today, or somebody touched me in a way that they were not supposed to. I couldn't. And it the amount of years it took me to heal and to even understand, first of all, what had happened. That knowing is ever with me, and I'm saying to myself, if I have all these capacities that God has given me, my ability to connect, even like I connected with you so easily, my readiness and willingness to learn, and to my determination and my will to try and push through and power through, what about children who don't have those gifts? How do they survive? How will they navigate life? And I thought, if they could have what I didn't have, a place or a knowing that if they speak up early about what's happening, that we can pluck them from that bad home, we can take them from that school, we can get, we can intervene and start, their process of healing, and maybe even preventing more harm, because hurt people, abused children become women and men who are in domestic violence situations. They either become more victims or they become perpetrators again. So my whole passion for this is not only prevention and healing, but also education. So we as parents, we as society know the importance of creating a space for children to trust us enough to tell us what's happening to them, and we can try to reach out to them and help them.
Yes, I love that, because sometimes the children, they don't have a voice, or like you said, they think it's normal. This happens in every other household. I mean, this must happen in every other household. And they can't kind of comprehend or process what's happening, and that this is not normal. This is not a normal thing. So giving them a voice, I love that you do that. And actually, you worked as a mental health counselor and coordinator, advocate for 24 years that you've been in San Francisco, all right?
Not that long. No. I've lived in that 24. No. I wish, okay. but long enough to again have the opportunity to directly impact women who had been in prison. I was actually working with women who had mental health challenges and who had been in prison for one reason or another, and trying to get reunited with their children again, which was right up my alley. I could relate to those women because they had trauma like I had had, and they were trying to rebuild and restart their lives. So it was a great opportunity for me to be able to serve God that way.
Yeah, and tell me, is the mental health field challenging to be in over an extended period of time?
I think you've said it. How do you know that? It is.
Just a feeling, just a hunch, but
yes.
I have a feeling it has its severe challenges in trying to help people and help their mindsets.
It does, and only because I'm an empath. I feel things so deeply, and so to go into work and be very present with somebody suffering day in and day out, and there are some moments when you know it's them, but you're so connected because you've had similar experiences that it's very difficult to even separate yourself from their pain. After a while, there's a buildup of that kind of layer of pain upon layer of pain that most mental health counselors or therapists end up having, not only to do therapy, but actually having breakdowns because it's very tough. You can do it for a certain period of time with self-care and prayer and other things, but I had to resign when I had my own challenges that I needed to deal with, and I realized that I could no longer give so much in that way and be as useful as I had been before. So yes, it's a very difficult job. And to be fair, there are some people who have, either maybe because they've not had as much trauma as I had, who are able to build that wall and do this work for many, many, many years. They are good. They're able to sustain the not only the temptations, but the difficulties of being that exposed all the time to other people's pain.
Yeah.
I wasn't one of those.
Yeah, and I think too, if you have experienced trauma, if you have experienced that, and you're in a process of, I think it's a continual healing, process, but it's so you can say, okay, well, this is clinical. These are my clients. These are, and it's just like so easy to say, okay, well, just draw a line and this is this. It's not that easy to do that, right?
No. Have you done mental health? You're interested in that. I know you brought it up before. You asked me that. Why is it? What is the draw for you in that field?
The draw for me too is just to bring healing to, the process of changing people's mindsets and the process of bringing somebody and helping somebody. You can't make somebody heal. You can't force somebody to say, okay, well, it's been a month. Get over it, move on. You can't do that. And so it interests me and it fascinates me because it's the process of helping somebody and walking through the process with them and meeting them on the other side, hopefully on the other side, and seeing the people be whole, be healthy.
Yes.
That's
it's God's work. It's wonderful for so many reasons, like you said, to actually be a part of a person's journey from brokenness to wholeness, and that you had a little part to do with that. It's very heartwarming.
And absolutely. And I want to kind of wrap up the segment by letting you talk about your book, your memoir, Stretch, because that's originally what connected us. It's all finished, and you're just putting the bow, the final bows on the package, but it's all finished and it's going to be out for release really soon.
Yes.
I have to tell everybody, I read the synopsis and I was grabbed instantly from the first paragraph. So you probably want to look for this one, and when it's finally out, I will be blasting it out on all my social media, channels and stuff. But tell people a little bit about why you wrote it and what you hope to accomplish from it.
Stretched, from the title, tells you what it is. It's really about my being stretched for me to breaking point, and then going from ruin to resilience and to redemption ultimately. That is the subtitle of the book, which you were able to help me break down. It's not just a story of survival in its bare bones form. It is in a time like this. When I wrote Stretched, the pandemic hadn't hit. But again, it's so timely for that reason, that even when we thought things were bad, that something else happened that made things worse. That you can constantly be stretched within yourself in ways that you never anticipated. Life will take you to dark places that you never even imagined existed. And so stretched is every man's book, really. That if you are human, you're going to know pain, you're going to know abandonment, you're going to know isolation, you're going to feel loneliness in a way that will connect you to other humans, because you're not alone. This is the human condition. And stretched is all about saying you can survive your life, no matter how impossible it may seem to you. That look at all these things that life dealt. Look at the road, the detours life took me on, and they were not always very pleasant. If anything, some of the things that happened to me would have caused most other people to give up. And there were times when I almost gave up, but for the grace of God. So stretch is about seeing the limitations to yourself as a human being, and leaning into God to find grace to heal yourself, but not only to heal yourself, but to give others the opportunity to know God through your own journey, to see God through your own eyes in a way. So that is why I'm so excited about it, especially in a time like this when there's so much chaos. There are so many reasons to despair and to be angry and to want to throw in the towel and say, I cannot do this anymore. There's no way out of this. But this book allows for the idea that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there is a way in which you can find your smile again. There is a way in which, through all of your challenges, you can be able to see that God never left you. He was always there, even in your darkest times. And so stretched is kind of like a love offering to the world that God inspired me to write. I didn't want to write that book.
You shared that, yes, that you did not want to write it. It's too painful to put what your experience is, but the hound of heaven.
Yes, God said to me, I didn't give you these experiences to live and die with them. I want people to know that I am here and I'm real. And you have the capacity to tell that story that I'm giving you, that I'm real. And I'm asking you, I'm commanding you, it's not a choice. I don't care if you don't want to do it. And I wrestled with myself, and I would write and stop and then cry and write and stop. And all the time God was telling me, Hajah, this is not your story. This is not your story. Wow. So here we go.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to come out. And it's not going to be too much longer, and I will let everybody know, you know. Okay, so I want to wrap up with one final question for you. Okay. And if you were talking to a young woman that has suffered abuse, maybe it's sexual abuse, maybe it's emotional abuse, verbal abuse, any kind of trauma in her life, what's the number one thing, if you were talking to her right now, that you would want to tell her?
I would tell her, I am so sorry this happened to you. Know that this is not the end of your life. You were not wrong. You were hurt. Somebody hurt you. You don't have to feel shame for what somebody did to you. You don't have to live the rest of your life in a place of smallness and sorrow, because you're not alone. One of the things I discovered very quickly when I wrote my book and started talking to other women about it, this was the most shocking thing for me, and it made sense why God asked me to write this book, that for every 6 women that I have talked to, 3 or 4 of them have experienced some kind of abuse or another. Yes, Michelle, that is how prevalent and this is it's a scourge in our society. In Sierra Leone, for example, 9 out of 10 young women are abused before, molested in some kind of way, violated in some way before they reach puberty, before they reach teenage years. So for that young woman who is listening, you are not alone. It's happened to the best of us. but you can survive it. You can have a life after this. This has happened, but it doesn't have to end there. You have your whole life ahead of you to live, to love, to bloom into what God has called you to be. That is my from my heart to yours, and from someone who has walked in your shoes. I hear you, I see you, I understand. You are loved, and you will survive after this.
Yes, that is an incredibly powerful message, that you think that everybody has access to that and everybody understands that in today's world, but they don't, and they haven't heard that, and they feel very alone. So I really appreciate you sharing that, you know, and we coined a little phrase like in our emails, like, since we felt like kindred spirits from the beginning, and, you know, like from my heart to yours, that's how we kind of end most of our emails. And that's just so, you know, special, but that capsulizes what we are supposed to do for humanity.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell people how they can connect with you if they want to reach out with you. Maybe there's a young lady that's going to watch this, or somebody will share this with a young lady, and, you know, they want to reach out to you, a safe haven to talk about stuff. I'll just say stuff. How can people connect with you?
People can connect with me, as you said before. The movement is Do Tell. It's on Facebook, the Do Tell movement. And my website is hajahkandeh.com. I have an email address, again, which if somebody feels more inclined to want a more personal connection, not on Facebook, it's hajahkandeh415@gmail.com.
And can you spell
I'm
that?
on Facebook. Hajah, HAJAHKANDEH, hajahkandeh.com, and hajahkandeh415@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. So
awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here today, taking your time, and, you know, just saying hi from San Francisco. Just
hi
being
from
here.
San Francisco, and hello from Sierra Leone as well. Thank you so very much, Michelle, for creating the space for me. I don't think this would have been this easy, you know, to go to some of the places that you took me to. But we thank God for the presence of God and for his grace and for your warmth and your heart. Thank you so much.
From my heart to yours.
And from mine to yours.
Absolutely. And I just want to let people know, if you want to get in touch with Winning Proof with me, you can go to my website, winningproof.com, or you can reach me via email at winningproof@gmail.com, or I'm on all the social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all those. You can find me at Winning Proof. So until next time, thank you so much for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.